Okay, what's up, everybody? We're back, and we're doing episode 4 in the inventory series. And we're going to be handling all the major functions today. So, all the adding of items, the stacking, the checking. We're going to be taking care of all that stuff. So, by the end of this, we'll be able to put items into inventory, have them stack, have them function as they should in our inventory. Before we get going on that, we got the inventory window to open and close and update last time. I'm going to jump into my folder for 1 second, and we're going to open up the inventory window. There's one quick thing that we have to do in here before I forget. So what I'm going to do is just jump into the graph, and I'm going to make sure I'm on class defaults, and I just want to make sure that this is set to is focusable. So this is our inventory window, just check is focusable, and then we're going to compile, save that, and exit. And then there's one thing we're going to do quick in the inventory slot since we're going to be using this now. So I'm actually going to come in here and we want to set focus in here too once we click this, because we're going to lose focus from our window and put it on the slot, and that's going to give us some problems. So we want to make sure that after we click this, we return our focus back to our window. Okay, so we're going to drag our item in here and we're going to break that. And then the only thing we need here is the inventory. So from this owning inventory here, we should be able to drag out and get main HUD. And then from main HUD, we can drag off and get our inventory window. So I'm going to get inventory window. And then this is what we're going to set focus on. So we can just drag off this and do set focus. And then we're going to plug that in here. So now whenever we click our button on our inventory slot, it's going to set the focus to our inventory window. And just to clean this up a little bit, I'm just going to select all that and just do a collapse. And I'm just going to name that set focus, just so I know what it is. And that just cleans it up a little bit. So once we get items in here, we should be able to click them. It'll set the focus back, and then we're just going to print. So that's all we got to do here. Those were the two things I wanted to do before I forgot. So now we're going to start out by going to our world item here. And the world item is going to be that item that we're picking up in the world. So now, instead of just destroying the actor when we pick it up, we want to call an interface that we made. So if I open my interfaces, we made this add to inventory interface before. So I'm going to drag off here, drag off the pickup pressed, and I'm going to look for add to inventory message. And we're going to throw that in. And now the target for this, I want to be the player's inventory. Okay, so I'm going to get player character, and then I'm going to drag off that, and I'm going to get component by interface. So I'm going to pick the BPI inventory interface that we made. And then I'm going to plug that into the target. And then we're going to split this structure pin open here. So we're going to pass in our base item and quantity. And then our index and inventory is fine to leave like that. So now when we pick an item up, we're going to send an interface to the player's inventory with the item and the quantity that we're picking up. And then we're going to destroy the actor. So we can compile that, save that. Now we can jump into the inventory component and we'll just be on the event graph here. So if we don't already have this, it looks like we don't have any interfaces on here. So we're going to add that interface, the inventory BPI interface, and that will give us the add to inventory function here. So I'm going to double click to get that out. So now when we pick an item up in the world, this is going to fire and it's going to pass us the item here. So we're going to start making some functions in here to start handling all this logic. So the first one we're going to make is we're going to make one called process item. And we're going to add an input on here that's for our item. So we're going to call it item and then give it the type of item struct. I'm just going to compile, go to the event graph, and now we can drag process item out. and pass our item through to it. So now when we pick our item up, we're going to send it into process item. So now I'm going to open up process item. And then right away, we're going to have to make another function. So I'm going to call this one check for stack. We need to add our item of the type item struct so we can pass that in. So I'm going to go back to the process item and we're going to just drag this out. So when we go to process an item, the first thing we want to do is check for stack. So we're going to check to see if we can stack this item on an existing stack in our inventory. So that's what this is going to do here. So all we're going to do here is grab our inventory array. We're going to loop through it. And we're going to basically check two things in here. So we're going to drag off this, just give myself a little bit of room here, and we're going to put a branch down. So we're going to check for two things. So we're going to need a and Boolean here. And the two things we want to check for is we're going to have to break this. We want to see if this item already exists in our inventory. So this is going to be our inventory. This is the item we're passing in here. So we're actually going to come off this and we're going to do a break on what we're passing into. And we just need the BP base item on that. So we just want to do an equals check to see if the item we're passing in is in our inventory already. So I'm going to drag off here. I'm going to do an equals and we're going to pass in both of our BP base items here. Now this is going to be one of the checks we're going to do. All right. And the other check is going to be, we want to see if we do have a stack, we want to make sure it's less than the stack size. So I'm going to need the defaults. So if I drag off the BP base item and get defaults, all we're going to need is the stack size here. So what I want to do is grab the quantity first, and I'm going to just do a less than, and then I'm going to connect my stack size up, and then we can hide the rest of these pins and try and clean this up a little bit here. So now we're checking to see if the BP base item is in our inventory already. And if it is, we want to get the quantity that we have in inventory and check to see if that is less than our stack size. So if both of those conditions are met, we're going to just return out of here. And when we return out of a loop, it's going to stop the loop for us. So I'm going to add a couple outputs to this. So I'm going to add one. We're going to say can stack, and I'm going to make that a Boolean. And then we're going to make a second one for our index. So the index is going to be an integer. If we return out of this node, we're only going to return out of this node if we find a similar stack that's less than its stack size. So if that's the case, then we're going to return out of this node. We want to check can stack, and we want to pass the index out of here. So I'm going to grab that index and just do something like this here, and we'll just pass that out. And then if it can't find an item that's already in there, we're just going to return out here. And when we return out here, we're going to return with can stack being false. And the index doesn't matter because we're not getting an index from this if we can't stack it. So we should be done with this. Let's compile, save that, go back to process items. So now our check for stack is set up. So now we're going to run that into a branch, and we're going to check for can stack. So if can stack is true, we're going to make a function to stack items. So let's come up here and make a function for stack item. And we're going to need two inputs on this. So we're going to have to pass the index in, and we're going to have to pass our item in. And the item is going to be of the type item struct. So I'm just going to jump back to process item here, and we can pop it in. So stack items is going to be coming off of true. And we're going to be passing in this index here. So whatever index we found, so this is only if we can stack. So whatever index we found, we're going to pass that index up. And then I'm just going to get my item. So I'm just going to type in get item, scroll all the way down. And this is our item here that we're passing in. And we're going to send that in. So now let's go and stack items here. So if we're stacking items, we're going to want to get our array, and we're going to get, so we're going to do a get, and we can just do a copy here. And I'm going to get this index, and then we're going to come off this get, and we're going to break. And then we just need the item and the quantity here. Now we're going to have to add the quantities together for what we have and what's coming in. So I'm also going to drag off here and do a break. So again, this is going to be what's in our inventory. This is going to be what's coming in. So from here, we just need the quantity. So I'm just going to hide everything else. So we're going to have to add these together. So I'm going to drag off, do an add, connect that one into it. So we're adding these quantities together, and then we're going to store that in a local variable. So I'm going to make a local variable, and I'm just going to call it my total amount. So with a local variable, I'm going to start with L underscore total amount. And we're going to make that an integer. And then we're going to set that. So let's plug it in here. We're going to set that from whatever this amount is going to be. So we're taking what we have in inventory, we're adding what we're bringing in, and then setting that to be our total amount. So now we need to check that against our class defaults. We're going to drag off our BP base item here, get our defaults. And then the only thing we need here is stack size. I'm going to drag off here, and we're going to have to do a check to see if this total amount is less than or equal to our stack size. So I'm going to feed stack size in, hide unconnected pins, and just clean this up a little. We'll do something like that. And then we can come off here, put a branch, connect the condition in. So after we add these, we're just checking, is this local amount less than or equal to our stack size? If so, we can just put it in there. If it's not, then that means we have more than we can stack. So we're going to have extras that we're going to have to reprocess. So let's handle the true here. So let's say that it is less than our stack size, so we can fit it easily in a stack. So we're going to grab our item array. We're going to drag off and get. We need a reference this time, and we should have our index coming in. We do. So we're going to get that index there. So get index, and then scroll all the way down. That is the index that we're going to put this in. And then we're going to set members. And what we're going to set is just the quantity. So we're just going to expose that quantity pin, and we're going to get this total amount. So remember, we're only coming here if the total amount is less than or equal to the stack size. And then once we do that, we can just update our widget. So we can grab that function, throw it in there, and return out. So now, if it's not less than or equal to, that means we have more than we can stack here. We're going to have extras. So we're going to need another local variable here. So I'm going to do L underscore extra amount, and that's going to be an integer as well. And what we're going to do here is grab our total amount. So we're going to have to find the difference from our total amount and our stack size. So I'm just going to get the total amount. I'm going to drag off, and we're going to minus. And we're going to minus our stack size. And then we're going to set that to be the extra. So I'm going to grab the extra. That's going to come onto our false here. So I'm just going to do something like this. So we're just going to use that output there to set our extra amount. So we're going to set members again. So I can just copy this one. We'll paste it down here. Set members. We want quantity. Yeah, that's all we need. Open is quantity on that. So the quantity that we're going to set now is going to be our stack size. So we're just going to come over here, grab the stack size, bring it down, and plug it into the quantity. And we're going to make sure to plug in our structure reference to it. So we're setting the new quantity here, and then we have to call our process item again for the leftover. So I'm just going to take the process item, I'm going to split this pin, and then now we have to pass in the item. So I'm going to drag off here and do a break. And then we just need to pass in that BP base item, hide unconnected. And the quantity that we're going to pass in is going to be our extra amount. So we can grab the extra amount, plug that in, and then we can just return out of here. So I'm going to compile and save that. So now our stack items should be done. So I'm just going to return out of here. Now, if the item can't be stacked, then we're going to make a function to find an open spot. So that's what I'm going to call this, find open spot. We don't need any inputs for this. This is just going to be a quick one. So all we're going to do is just come in here, take our item struct. We're going to loop through it. We're going to break this open. And we're just going to check for our our BP base item, we're just gonna do an equals check and pick BP base item. So BP base item is our empty slot. So the first slot we find that's empty, we're gonna get that index number. So I'm gonna throw a branch out here, connect up the condition. Okay, so we're just looping through first open spot we find, we're gonna return out. And just like we did before, I'm gonna add 2 outputs. So I'm gonna add a empty slot boolean, so we're going to change that to bool, and then we're going to send out the index, and that's going to be an integer. If we're coming out of true, then that means that we found a slot that's equal to BP base item. That means we have an empty slot. So we're going to check empty slot, and we're going to feed out the index for whatever index we're at that we found an empty slot. We're going to feed that out. And then if our inventory is full, then we're not going to find a spot. So I'm just going to grab that return node. We're going to throw it down here, plug it in off completed. So if this return node fires, we want to make sure that empty slot is unchecked here. So if this return node fires, we know we don't have an empty slot. Our inventory is full, and we should be done in here. So now back to process item. We're going to drag that find open slot out, and we're going to put a branch coming off this here. And then basically if we don't have an empty slot, so if empty slot is false, we're just going to come out of here for now, and we're just going to print inventory full. And then what I want to do after this is do a update. We're going to return out of here. So that's all we're doing there. And then if we do have an empty slot, we're going to add items. So let's make a function add items. And we're going to need 2 inputs on this. So we're going to need a index, which is an integer, and we're going to need our item. We'll put our item in, make it item struct, and then I'll just jump back to process item. I'm going to drag this out from true, and then I'm just going to feed this index coming from the find open spot out, plug that into index, and we should have our item coming in here. We do. So we can get item, scroll down, get the item, pass it in. And then after we're done adding the item, we can return out of here. So let's open up add item here. I'm going to compile and save. I'm actually going to save the project too, because I haven't saved yet and we've done a lot here. Okay, so inside of add item, so I'm going to drag off and get a branch here, and then we're going to get our item and we're going to break it, and we're just going to need the item and the quantity. I'm going to drag off the base item, and we want defaults. And then we only need the stack size here. So I'm going to check to see if this quantity coming in is less than or equal to our stack size. Then we can hide unconnected here. And then that will be our condition for this branch here. So we're going to get our item array. We're going to drag off to a get reference. We should have our index that we're passing in there. So we can get index. So we'll get that index number from this array. We're going to drag off here and set members and just kind of clean this up a bit here. And what we're setting this time, so this isn't from a stack, so we're just adding the item here. So we need our BP base item and the quantity. And what I'm going to do just to keep this clean here, I'm just going to do, we'll get item, and then I'm going to drag off here and break. And then we just need item and quantity. So we'll plug those in like that. And then from here, we can update inventory and return out. And then coming out of false here, we're going to have an extra amount again. So I'm going to make another local variable in here, L underscore extra amount. And we're going to be setting that amount from this false here. And again, just to keep things clean, I think instead of grabbing, because I need these again, but instead of just grabbing those, I think what I'm going to do is just drag off, and I'm going to break this again here. We just need the item and the quantity. I'm going to get the defaults, and then we just need stack size here. So this time I'm going to drag off quantity, and we're going to minus the stack size. Hide unconnected. So we're just trying to find the extra amount right now, and then we can plug that in and set our extra amount there. So I think doing this will just make it a little bit cleaner. That way we're not dragging stuff across. And then after we set that, we can set members. So I can actually copy that, bring our set members down, plug in the reference. And I'm going to get the item again here. And we're going to break it. And then we just need the BP base item from this. So I'm going to hide everything else. We're going to bring this BP base item over here, plug it in. And we need to plug in our stack size for the quantity here. So I'm going to get defaults, get our stack size. That's going to be our quantity. We can hide unconnected. So if we have more coming in than we can stack, we're going to get our extra amount. We're going to set the current stack to the stack size. And then we're going to reprocess the extra again. So we're going to grab the process item, plug that in. We're going to split that pin. And we can just take this base item here, drag this over, connect it, and then get our extra amount. And we can plug that into the quantity. And then we can return out here. And I'm not doing an update here because when it processes, when it's done processing, it'll update. So let's compile, save. We'll go back to process items. So that's our add item. So we may be done here. Okay, so let's jump in and try this. Let's see. Made a lot of functions here. Let's see what's going on. So if we pick up some bread, we got 2 bread there. If I pick up another one, we got 4. Pick up 1 more. I gave this a stack size of 5. So it filled that stack and gave me 1 extra. These, I believe I set to stack to 3 max. So that's going to give me 2. And then if I pick up another one, it fills that up to 3, gives me the extra. And if we have these should be singles, and they are. So we are looking good here. And then if we click on it, you can see that we're using it, but we haven't covered that yet. So it is printing. So it's recognizing that it's picking up the click so we can get ready to use our items next time. I want to just test the full. So I'm going to go in here and just make quantity 20 of this water bottle. Play, we'll pick that up. So now I have 20 water bottles. So if I was to pick something else up, it's going to disappear from here because we haven't covered that yet, but we should print inventory full in the top. And we do. So it is recognizing that the inventory is full. It didn't give me the bread. And then just for the hell of it, I want to just grab one of these bread. This will stack to 5. I want to just make that 8. So if we pick up 1 bread that has 8 in it, that's over our max stack size. So if I pick that up, we should have 5 and 3, and we do. So it looks like everything's working, everything's stacking right. So everything is looking good in here. So next time I think we'll cover the using the item, and we might be able to finish up the base inventory with that use item. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it for this time. So we did a lot. We have all the core functionality done here. That's going to be it for now. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.